We are continuing our series on acclaimed director Christopher Nolan in his Dark Nolan era, if you will, where he directs Batman Begins, The Prestige, Dark Knight, Inception, and Dark Knight Rises. After his success with Insomnia, proving that he can work in a studio system, he got the chance to direct a big franchise film, that being Batman Begins. Bwomp womp!
Yep, that would be the lovely loud kick down the door tones of Hans Zimmer, incredible composer. First movie with him was Batman Begins. Interesting thing that you'll notice with a lot of Chris Nolan going forward is he tends to work with a lot of the same people. He works with on both sides of the camera as well. So you have Hans Zimmer as a composer. You'll have Wally Pfister, his cinematographer, who did work with him on Memento and Insomnia beforehand. But I would say once he starts to get getting access to those higher quality cameras, you start to really see what Wally Pfister can do as a composer of shots, lighting, all that. And then on the other side of the camera, you get him using a lot of the same actors as well. So
like Christian Bale, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ken Watanabe, others.
Mike Cocaine.
So Rich, let's talk a little bit about leading up to Batman Begins, both on the Batman side and the Nolan side. Well, we kind of covered Nolan in our last two videos, about an hour and 20 minutes total. But on the Batman side, Batman was in a bad place in in the early 2000s, wasn't he, in terms of live action films and the reputation thereof?
Yeah, so leading up to it, you had Tim Burton bringing his style into it. You know, again, talking about great directors with their own style. I'm very influenced by German expressionist style films from the early 30s. He brings a lot of those heavy shadows, warped, distorted presentation of
heavily stylized gothic reality.
Yes. You have him bring that to Batman, and it's like a perfect mix because Batman, really, out of all the superheroes, is the one who's like the most dark, brooding, moody, I guess I would say. He plays very flat, like he's not affected by stuff.
Which I think I think he even influenced the sort of Art Deco style of Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, without question, yeah. Batman the Animated Series, I would say that was a very big saving grace once Tim Burton departed the series after...
Yeah, post Batman Returns, because that didn't exactly sell toys.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Batman Returns, I have watched. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a fan of it at all. I think you could have gotten a better...
I respect it as a... Listen, you get lines like, just the pussy I've been looking for.
Look, I appreciate Tim Burton's style of the movie. Like from an artistic point of view, I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
Danny DeVito as the fucking Penguin. Why? Why? Christopher Walken is the one part of the movie that I really like, and then Michael Keaton, playing.
Oh, Christopher Walken's always great.
Yeah, he's like, "Hey, Penguin, what are you doing?" All right, let me not even try to do Christopher Walken. Jesus Christ, I'm gonna throw myself out a window.
You got a watch in your ass.
I forget. He went into why he developed the voice he did. I think his mother's from Holland and his father's from Munich or I know his parents were both immigrants, and that's how he developed the kind of the voice.
I got a fever.
Yeah, it's a very unique voice, but anyway.
So then Joel Schumacher took Batman, and Batman Forever was good.
So here's the thing. I love Batman Forever. That's my first Batman movie when I was 4 years old. I actually had a Riddler cake for my birthday. It looked fucking shitty. It looked horrible.
Was there a riddle inside it?
No, there was no riddle. It was just yeah. My mom was like, "Hey, here's a riddle. Why the fuck did I spend $150 on this fucking cake for this Riddler to look like a warped Jim Carrey at the very end of the movie?"
As well, it should. But then Batman and Robin came out, and that was...
So Batman and Robin is not good. Even you have Chris O'Donnell who plays Robin. Says, I felt like I was shooting a toy commercial, which it's
yeah. But also you have this homoerotic gay circus thing going on. I wonder if Joel Schumacher was on cocaine at the time.
But it does have one of the greatest lines of any comic book movie ever.
What line would that be?
Poison Ivy, her whole thing in the movie is she can kiss people and it kills them. So she's seducing Chris O'Donnell's character kisses him on the lips, and you're like, oh, damn, he's dead. He, like, looks at her for a second, and then he proceeds to grab his lips and peels off this thing that makes it look like he has, like, chapped-ass lips.
Oh, so
And
it's
then
like a lip protector.
Yeah, and he looks at her and goes, rubber lips are immune to your charms.
Ew!
And, yeah,
that smacks of, like, shark repellent type shit.
So good. It's so bad, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I will forgive it because it is fucking hilarious.
Okay.
It's hilariously bad, and poor Uma Thurman, man. That, like, kind of, it's one of those, like, thank God for Quentin Tarantino for being like, hey, do you want to be in Kill Bill? Because that would have sunk her fucking career.
Yeah, Kill Bill skyrocketed her.
Yeah, brought her back because she was already.
Well, she was already in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, like, she was already a great actress. It was just more like that movie, unfortunately, like, the one-liners.
I once saw...
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice
Age!
Ah.
I once saw... Like, I walked by my TV, and this is a weird thought, but, like, I saw her in a movie. I was just walking by the TV, and it looked like a normal, like, drama, and it was so weird seeing Uma Thurman in, quote-unquote, a normal movie. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, like, she's done stuff with, like, there's this one European filmmaker. I know he made a movie called Antichrist. I'm blanking on his name.
Okay.
But she was in one of his films, and she did it, and I remember, like, seeing her act in a scene, and I thought, she's good. Like, she's a good, like, straightforward actor. She doesn't have to be in, like, very over-the-top kind of...
Yeah.
If you want to call them hammy
it's just
roles.
That's what she's known for.
Yeah, it's just... But specifically, like, Kill Bill, like I said, took away the ham and brought her back to, like, just being a really great actress, whereas Batman and Robin... With the whole like I told the Ice Queen, this is a one-woman show or something like that.
Ew.
It's like, oh yeah. Bane in the movie is just a fucking idiot.
Oh, but I'm curious. What led to Nolan? What the hell got him to do Batman other than his film experience? Like, what was Warner Brothers thinking about Batman in the early 2000s?
The flop of Batman and Robin, which that shit fucking flopped.
Yeah.
That was floppy flopping. A flopper.
As floppy as a dick in the wind.
Okay, so you have the Batman animated series, which animated Batman was great. Like, Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill as, doing the Joker. That was a great series, but it made it a great series because it continued basically the Tim Burton style. Like you said, Art Deco, Gothic. I would say with Chris Nolan, he expressed interest in doing a Batman movie.
Okay, I didn't know if they went to him, he went to them.
I believe it was a mutual thing of they had the Batman property, Warner Brothers. He worked on the movie Insomnia, which was kind of like that initial, like, being able to walk in the door like, hey, you have this property, can I do something with it? And they were like, you know what? We trust you.
Yeah, and I bet they were like, we are desperate to do something with it to get rid of the stain of Batman and Robin.
Yeah, Batman and Robin, like, again, it's one of those movies where you technically checked off all the boxes for it to be good, and yet it was still shit.
Yeah.
Which you'll see later on with other superhero movies, but I digress for the moment. You check off the box of George Clooney and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Uma Thurman and Chris O'Donnell, so these very good actors, and it just... Because of the directing, it was just really bad.
Yeah.
Also, like, the fact that, you have Joel Schumacher trying to do the 60s Batman, and everyone, for the longest time, where it was like...
But it's like 60s plus 90s doesn't really work, unless it's Austin Powers.
Well, Austin Powers being very self-aware, whereas this was trying to be serious and...
Yeah.
Having...
The Ice Age! Anyway, so
Chris Nolan gets the opportunity. He assembles his crew, and when they're looking for Batman, they ultimately settle. Well, I'm saying settle, but
settle. Wow.
Yeah, settle with.
Tell
Christian
us how you
Bale.
hate Christian Bale.
Christian Bale's incredible.
He is.
So no, and I think the role that got Christian Bale the Batman role was American Psycho.
I think so too, because that is an example of wild mental health issues, and Bruce Wayne, much more subtle than American Psycho in the showing of his mental health issues, but when he can show the range of American Psycho, he can rein it in a little bit and play Bruce Wayne / Batman.
Yeah, like Granted, Batman's not walking around in a trench coat getting ready to split Jared Leto's head open with a meat cleaver or an axe, I think it is in American Psycho.
Yeah.
Definitely the mentality of like the bougie rich presentation, but because Christian Bale is also an incredible actor, he can also then pivot to this very tortured individual who's looking for not just justice for himself, but justice for others as well.
Yeah.
You know, you have in Batman Begins him talking about how he goes to these different areas of the world and he's like, I've seen suffering in different ways. Like, he's seen how poor people are treated. He's seen how, you know, his own upbringing being very rich and wealthy. He's seen how that lifestyle was.
That's really cool that he like decides to be poor, decides to be a criminal so he can like understand how these people think.
Yeah, and he sees how like he and I would say like that kind of empathy and that kind of like mercy ultimately is what, you know, makes his Batman very detailed. Granted, people feel different ways about the voice. The voice kind of has gotten parodied now, but that smoker voice, I would say it gets.
This city is full of people.
Yeah, like it's like breathy. It's like, you know, it was like he's like I got to figure out how to do a Batman voice.
Sounds like goddamn Ash Ketchum.
Yeah, he was like standing in line at a 7-Eleven in L.A. and was like, damn, how do I get like a really good like Batman voice? And it was someone who was like a chain smoker was like, 1 marble light, please. And he was like, got it.
Yeah, some like
got it.
70-year-old
Yeah.
crackhead smoker woman named Peg.
He's like, what's your name? Peggy. Like, oh, shit, all right.
And ding, there it was.
Yeah, perfect. So
I also really love about Batman Begins that they didn't rush into Joker as a villain.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think that they didn't even want to rush into Joker anyway. Like, I think from the get-go,
they were like, they wanted to build a franchise and build up to the Joker.
Yeah, like Batman Begins is, as it says, beginning. So you're not going to immediately rush to like Riddler
into the arch nemesis. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to run in. You know, you're not going to start with the Riddler. Even though the one movie recently started with the Riddler, and I like that movie, but other people feel different ways about it.
I love that movie.
I do too.
Where's the second one? Matt Reeves. Well, he's dealing with stuff. He can take his time.
Yeah, I just love the fact that like they have all the State Farm commercials with Batman Bateman.
Yeah.
and like they're having to air them because they probably are like, look, we spent so much fucking money on this shit.
Yeah.
We got to get this stuff out like right now because this movie might be getting canceled. So which is brutal.
They're reminding us like, hey, Batman live action stuff exists, at least in the form of State Farm.
I don't even think it's that. I just think they spent so much fucking money on those commercials, and they're like, look, if this movie's getting canceled, we're not like going to sit around with a thumb up our ass and let these commercials collect us. So
yeah,
might as well put them out there. And look, hey, it's a shame because I think the artistic style of those commercials actually show what the artistic style is going to be for the next Batman movie, which is a shame because again, I was looking forward to that next jump, but. Anyway, back to Batman Begins.
Which
a little bit of a tangent there, but
I think it's an amazing origin story. It's the first live action, to my knowledge, origin story we got for Batman.
Yeah, and again, you see his parents' death, but it's not like that's not like the only reason why he becomes Batman. Like you see how in the opening part of the movie when he's waiting to face the gentleman who murdered his family in court who's going to
he goes in with a gun to kill him and then somebody else kills him, and that moment kind of saved Bruce's soul because then he ended up never using guns or never killing people.
You have now like in this movie Ra's al Ghul, played by Ken Watanabe, puts him and then Deckard, played by Liam Neeson, put him through this testing, build up his skills.
The League of Shadows
builds him up. Ultimately, he's given a choice of, you know, as the final part of the initiation into the gang.
He has to kill a murderer, and he refuses.
He refuses, and it's really the moment where you go,
I see who Batman is. Yes.
Because, again, it would have been very easy just to kill this guy who clearly is guilty. Like, it's another situation where going back to, like, you know, the whole Christopher Nolan themes of his movies, the guy's clearly guilty.
Yeah.
Clearly, you know, again, they're like, he murdered his, like, neighbor, I believe, for I think it was for something stupid. murders his neighbor for like, I think it's like they said like his crops or something like very basic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne is like, he needs to be brought to justice. He doesn't need to be killed.
Yeah, because if you kill him, all you've done is create another killer, and it solves nothing.
And that's kind of, I don't know if this comes before or after Batman Begins, but that's kind of a famous saying about, like, from Batman, saying if you've killed a killer, there's still the same amount of killers in the world.
It's the Batman mentality that I find the most fascinating part of the character that fucking Zack Snyder seemed to fucking forget in his Batman movies. Anyway, so in the movie you have a cool villain group. You have Ra's al Ghul, who's taken out in the first act. Wink. You have Bruce Wayne, who goes back to Gotham. He sees that his company is kind of in the process of about to dissolve. This guy is about to break it all down because he was declared dead. And Alfred, when he sees him, he's like, Master Wayne, I had you declared dead. And he's like,
You're supposed to be dead.
and he's like, you had me declared dead? And like,
that was a really good Christian Bale, I'm not gonna lie.
So he comes back. So you have Bruce Wayne, he comes back to Gotham after going through the League of Shadows initiation and blowing up their whole fucking facility. I would say the best part of the movie is watching him go through the process of setting up the Batcave, getting it put together, working with Lucius Fox, played by Morgan Freeman, who kills it.
And for the very first time, we see where Batman got all his fancy gadgets.
Yes, that is something kind of cool, because in the other movies, it's just kind of like he just has them.
He's just already Batman. And it's like, I get he's a billionaire, but like this was cool because it took you through step by step how he got, and it was really good fan service, like him getting these iconic things, like the mask, the wings, the Batmobile, in this case the tumbler, and it's all like really organic ways he does it because it's like military technology.
Definitely the whole. What's the theme? What's the scene with Lucius Fox when he's like,
Does it come in black?
Come in black, and then also to the like, what do you need all this stuff for?
Spelunking.
Yeah, and he's like spelunking, and so that's awesome. You have Rachel, who's still in the city. She's working as a DA, and she's coming into conflict with one of the cooler villains, I would say, and it's a weird trade-off of I get why he's almost a secondary villain in the movie.
Yeah.
I wish he was more prevalent as the main villain.
Same, because the whole theme of the movie is facing your fears.
So you have Cillian Murphy. I used to say Cillian because I'm a moron.
Same.
Cillian Murphy. Now that I'm actually cultured and know what the Irish know more about the fucking Irish language. Cillian Murphy plays Scarecrow.
Yes.
Absolutely awesome.
Yeah. He initially auditioned for Batman.
Which is weird. Like
I don't see him as Batman.
I see him more in a villain role than I would.
So then Chris Nolan was like, "Hey, I don't think you're right for Batman, but we got this other role." And then Cillian Murphy ended up being in a lot of Nolan movies.
Yeah, winning an Oscar ultimately out of all of it.
Oppenheimer.
So, yeah, he didn't take it any kind of way. He was like, you know what, sure, I'll play that role. And
yeah,
hey, look, you know what, he's done very well, Peaky Blinders and all that. But he's incredible as Scarecrow. You know, he has the facade of this educated individual who clearly is corrupt.
Who works at a mental health facility, but yeah.
Yeah, corrupt in terms of getting these like hired hitmen killers for the Falcone crime family.
Yeah.
He basically helps get them off or sent to, instead of to Arkham, gets them, or is Arkham the name of the mental facility?
So Arkham, yes, is the mental health facility.
Okay.
Because, all of Batman's villains are crazy.
Blackgate's the prison, my bad.
Blackgate, okay.
Yeah. So gets him sent to Arkham. Victor Zsasz is in the first scene, which I'm like, Zsasz? I'm like, holy shit. Like,
wait, is he?
Yeah, because he's like, Mr. Zsasz is like more of a threat
remember
to
that.
himself than...
Yeah.
Yeah. So he gets him off. You see that there's like this facade of educated, well-calm demeanor. Ultimately turns out to be a psychopath. He has a mask. He sprays his fear toxin that he developed. Drives people insane. Ultimately, Falcone gets arrested in the scene where Batman becomes the Batman.
Which, plot twist, the fear toxin comes from these blue flowers that Bruce Wayne was tasked with finding early in the movie on the mountains with, like, the League of Shadows. And they used the flower as well.
Yes, but now that now that their operation has been basically blown the fuck up and Ra's al Ghul is dead, wink. Those flowers are probably in shorter quantity, not nearly as much. Wink.
Yeah.
Wink, wink. So now Batman captures Falcone, throws him into Blackgate. He tries to kill himself, so then he gets sent to Arkham. While in Arkham, he has this great confrontation scene where the supplier of this fear toxin, he says to Crane, who is evaluating him, that he wants to still be part of whatever this big thing that's going to be happening in Gotham is. Crane says that he would be much better dead than alive. So instead of killing him, he sprays him with this highly concentrated dose of the fear toxin.
And leaves him to writhe.
Yeah, and he's like, ah, blah, blah, blah. And it's oh, that's really funny. And as he's walking out, there's this woman who's outside the room, just horrified, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
And Crane's oh, he's real crazy. So then you have it where Rachel figures it out. She's working with the prosecutor. The prosecutor actually gets murdered. I forgot about that.
And I think it's really cool. I think Rachel's a really cool character as kind of a mirror to Bruce Wayne, because she's doing justice the right way, technically.
Yes, and it definitely becomes a theme in The Dark Knight where, that kind of ultimately leads to a fracture there.
Yeah, which Harvey Dent also is kind of a parallel, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. So you have it where now Batman learns that Rachel gets kidnapped by Crane in the elevator. She's riding down, and he's already wearing a mask and sprays her and captures her and takes her down to the basement of Arkham. Batman shows up to Arkham, and you get easily one of my favorite fight scenes or Batman being Batman scenes in any Batman movie, period.
Oh, where he sets all the bats free and then he glides down on the grappling hook and all that.
But before that, the introduction to the scene is so good because you have Rachel who's just been hit with this crazy amount of fear toxin. You get Crane standing over her with the clan bag over his head, whatever the fuck it is. And he's scaring the shit out of her. Yeah. And then you hear a whoosh, and one of the lights breaks and everything goes dark, and they're
and somebody picks it up and it's a batarang.
Yep. And they're talk, and you hear the crew talking amongst themselves, and they're it's him, who? And then Kelly Murphy's just the Batman. It's so good.
It is so good.
Oh god, that scene's awesome. So then you have this really great fight scene. You have Crane's about to hit him again with the fear toxin because prior to that scene and gets gets into this big fight. He sprays Crane with the fear toxin. Crane goes crazy. He's able to rescue Rachel. He develops an antidote to this fear toxin.
And then puts it in the water to spray in the air, I think. That's
the ultimate. That's the ultimate thing that happens. Is he develops this antidote for Rachel. Is able to save Rachel before her mind totally goes kaput because of the fear toxin. Yeah. He attends a party, and at the party appears Neeson.
Yeah, as
Liam Neeson.
Plot twist. Spoiler if you haven't seen Batman Begins, but it's been literally 20 years. Yes. He is the actual Ra's al Ghul.
He is the Ra's al Ghul, and again, that scene is so good when he's talking to the people at the party. He's everybody get out of my house.
That is so good.
And again,
when Christian Bale acts like bougie Bruce Wayne, and he's all you sycophants, all you phonies.
Oh, so great. and again, he clears everybody out, so they're all safe, but they think he's a total douche nozzle. Yeah. But anyway, so
which that's a heroic moment to me, because it's he doesn't care about the reputation of Bruce Wayne anymore. Yeah, he gives zero fucks as long as these people are safe.
Yeah, there's definitely in this Batman Begins movie, you definitely see the initial fracture of Bruce Wayne and Batman, which is a theme in most Batman movies. But I would say,
and that's a great part at the end of Batman Begins where Bruce Wayne is such and such, this is why I wear a mask, and Rachel touches his face and says, "No, this is your mask." Which, that's always kind of been a theme of Batman, but this kind of hammers it home of, no, Bruce Wayne is the mask.
Yeah, it's a good call on Christopher Nolan's part to say, okay, I want to explore the psychological concepts of Batman. So anyway, Ra's al Ghul destroys his mansion and goes, I forget, he says a line, he's you destroyed my house and now I destroyed yours. We are even. And he leaves. The big event that happens, and this is the big showdown that occurred that Falcone mentioned, they were dumping this toxin in the water. They're now going to use, like, I want to say it's like steam pipes to cause the water to evaporate into air to become a mist so that people can breathe it in and everybody goes crazy, ultimately destroying Gotham.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, it starts out isolated to the, like, shit area, not, like, the rich, wealthy area.
Yeah.
Row homes that stack up, like,
yeah.
like
Which,
majors.
there's some really good practical effects there of, like, miniature sets of like, the slums.
That, and then also, too, you have the Lannister kid.
Oh, yeah.
as the little kid who's like, they said you're fake, but I know you're real. And he gives them, and then Batman gives him like a batarang. He's like, show him this, and if they give you any mouth, throw it at him. So,
something like that.
Yeah. Which, funny enough, I thought that kid was going to turn out to be Robin, but boy, was I wrong.
Yep.
So now you have this final showdown between Ra's al Ghul, Batman. They're fighting it out on a train. You have Rachel takes out Crane, who's now officially just Scarecrow. Period. I think she hits him with like a stun gun, and he's like, "Oh!"
Yeah,
like,
and he just rides away, and that's the last time we see him until Dark Knight. But we'll get to that.
Yeah. So Batman defeats Ra's al Ghul. It's weird because they leave the window open in that scene, so I thought maybe Ra's al Ghul, like they leave it open to whether or not Ra's al Ghul gets away with it, gets out of there before the train crashes.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he dies with the train.
And I love that part of like Ra's al Ghul saying, "You're not going to kill me." Or you can't kill me, or something like that. And then Batman says, but I don't have to save you.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty badass.
I mean, that's just Batman as a whole, though. He won't kill you, but he will certainly maybe make you wish you were dead.
Yeah.
So the movie ends. They are walking around the destroyed mansion. You had Rich bring up the whole scene where she caresses Bruce Wayne's face and says, "This is your mask." And they walk off, and the movie ends.
And then Christopher Nolan garners acclaim and prestige.
Good little segue there. So with the end of Batman, very big success. Opens the door for the Joker.
It kind of was the beginning of the reboot thing that's going on now. Like it was the first. Like people had never really heard the word reboot before.
Yeah, I would say definitely a forerunner.
Yeah.
Like before it was ever a thing to reboot something.
Specifically, the dark gritty reboot. I joke about that a lot. Like such and such is the dark gritty reboot, but it's true.
Yeah,
Batman Begins is that, and it's great for it.
But again, it's the whole thing. Like we talked about last time about the whole storytelling thing where it's like that corny. Like I bet you're wondering how I got here. Like that.
Yeah.
That whole thing. That was at one point kind of a thing. That would be when it was original. It was good, but then it was more like a shitty byproduct.
And now, honestly, I'm sick of dark gritty reboots.
Yeah, dark gritty reboots sometimes just go with.
They made a Power Rangers dark gritty reboot. Power Rangers did not need a dark gritty reboot. It didn't need any type of reboot. Leave Power Rangers in the 90s, please.
Okay, I'm going to leave this conversation alone because we're talking about Chris goddamn Nolan.
Not Power Rangers.
All right, so now we move on to The Prestige, which you have, funny enough, another reunion of Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan. They come back together.
And Michael Caine.
Michael Caine.
Yep.
And this time you add Hugh Jackman,
yes,
who's awesome, another superhero, playing Wolverine.
I hadn't considered that.
And you also have another superhero in the movie, Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson.
Yes.
So you have these. So one of the interesting things, and this is something I
Except
learned,
in this movie, their powers are a bit more magical.
So when I was in acting school, one of the things that we talked about was what a lot of actors who do these Marvel movies, DC movies, they have a sense of what's called the epic.
Yeah.
Like something greater than yourself, and that's one of the reasons why English actors tend to beat out American actors, because American actors are taught to be like real and moody and annoying, whereas like the other actors are taught more to be like a thespian. There's a greater overall narrative that they're a part
or
of.
not to be.
Yes, Shakespearean almost.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now you get the Prestige. Chris Nolan. Once again, you have Wally Pfister doing the camera work, and he likes the shit out of that movie. So with the Prestige, if I could say my favorite part about that whole movie, it is the lighting. The lighting is, I just give it that hard 2 thumbs up. I wish anyone who's going to be a cinematographer would watch the lighting in the Prestige. I just think that's easily the best part of the movie.
Yeah. Definitely great lighting. My favorite aspect of the movie, though, David Bowie as Tesla.
Why? That's all I think. Every time I hear that, and then also too, David Bowie doing the accent, I'm like,
I love that because you kind of just let David Bowie do what he wants, right? Like, he does some drugs, right? He gets up there and he makes up a vaguely Eastern European accent, and I don't know. I feel like just the trippiness of David Bowie kind of matches Nikola Tesla, because maybe Nikola Tesla was an alien. Who knows?
So narrative wise, The Prestige. Funny enough, everyone talks about the movie Insomnia being one of the weaker movies. I think story wise, Prestige might be kind of one of the lower movies, because that narrative is like, it's okay. It's these two guys who are getting into it over their magic acts, about how they pull it off.
But it's all over the death of Hugh Jackman's wife, which he suspects Christian Bale killed her on purpose. No, he accidentally killed her by tying the wrong knot, and she got stuck during a magic trick in this tank of water. And then they proceed to be rival magicians, trying to outdo each other to extreme extents.
But then you get like the absurdity of the whole thing of Hugh Jackman cloning himself.
The cloning machine.
Yeah, with the help of Nikola Tesla, they find a way to clone iterations of Hugh Jackman, which I wish it was like legit cloning, where like every time they clone him, it looks less and less like Hugh Jackman and more like shit. And like at one point, it's just like a hand coming out of the forehead. It's like this.
Ew.
It's like, look, it's me, and he's like, what? No.
Right.
He's like, your hand is clearly down at a normal
Ew,
area.
it's just a hand with his face on it growing out of his forehead.
Yeah, I mean, at a certain point with cloning, it gets to be absurd and abominations.
Yeah.
But with The Prestige, the big twist in the ending is that I believe Hugh Jackman dies. He does something to get himself killed. I haven't seen it.
Christian Bale kills him.
Oh, that's right.
Like, kills the original him after, Hugh Jackman is killing all these clones in the process of doing magic tricks.
It's like out of all the narratives, I think that's the one from Chris Nolan where I'm like, I don't think that's...
See, I like it, but I can see an inkling of, like, it's the beginning of Chris Nolan getting a little over the top.
Yeah, and again, it's like, it's not a bad movie at all. It's, again, if you want to say it's one of the... I think
it's wonderful.
Yeah, if you want to say it's one of the weaker Nolan movies, okay, but it's still like...
But by any other any other schmuck director, you would say that's a great movie.
Yeah. Well, no, I would say Chris Nolan makes it good, whereas like if I were to see any other, if Joel Schumacher...
No, I'm saying if the movie was made the exact same way, and it was some director no one had ever heard of, you'd be like, that's a great movie. But for Chris Nolan, because we hold him in such high regard, we say, because of our standards with him, we say it's one of his weaker films, but still a good movie.
Yeah, it's, not one of my favorites, but like I said, if you're a cinematographer, I recommend fully watching the movie, because good lighting, good shots.
Yeah.
Really solid break between Batman movies, because now, from the 2006 Prestige, you get a gap year of 2007, because while in the year 2007, they are filming The Dark Knight. This movie is special. I still consider it the best movie of the 2000s. Not everybody agrees. Some people will say,
I think it is a great crime drama that transcends being a Batman film. And I know that's been said a million times and it's cliche, but like I would put it on the level of like The Departed of crime dramas.
I think it's better than The Departed.
It might be.
Yeah, it's again, talking about taking a genre and then bringing it above. Like everyone, kind of said something similar about when The Winter Soldier came out for Captain America.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, definitely, it goes from being just like, the comic book genre to being like a spy thriller.
Yeah.
But the first movie to actually do that in the comic book genre was The Dark Knight, and that same year you have the release of Iron Man starting the Marvel Universe. Like, I think within the same weekend, actually.
So that was a banger year for superhero movies just with those two.
And also, I think Speed Racer 2 came out. Which, look, not to remember, but Speed Racer...
I know someone who his favorite movie is Speed Racer. I'm not dropping names.
Again, Speed Racer, it's very stylish. It's the Wachowski brothers. They're sisters, right?
siblings. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So Wachowski siblings, right? Who directed it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
They're great with their visual style, but like sometimes they let me down with like Cloud Atlas, for example.
Yeah, that movie with Tom Hanks, who like he keeps.
It's a great book, but they should have kept the movie in the structure of the book. But I digress.
Yes, let's.
Anyway, The
let's
Dark
shift.
Knight, blom again, baby.
Hans Zimmer coming back to compose, Wally Pfister coming back to shoot the shit out of the movie.
Christian Bale, baby.
Christian Bale comes back.
Unfortunately,
as Batman.
taking a backseat to the amazing, the timeless, the late Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger gets casted as the Joker. I remember hearing this,
And everybody loses their minds.
Yeah. Oh, damn. Yeah. Speaking of fucking tragedies from this movie, launches 1,000 shitty Joker impressions. But anyway, that's later on down the road.
And everybody wearing a fedora saying, "I swear to God, The Dark Knight is the best film ever made."
That is and every Why So Serious poster and merchandise and all that. But
Every dude thinking he's the Joker posting shit like some men just want to watch the world burn.
before that, in the year 2007, I started my first year at Charter Tech. I remember reading on the computer the one day that Heath Ledger was cast as Joker, and I thought to myself, "What the fuck?"
You were like the 10 things I hate about you guy.
That's the thing. That was my thinking. Because again, Heath Ledger, great actor. Brokeback Mountain. I think he
Knight's
received an
Tale.
Oscar nod. Knight's Tale is just fucking awesome.
Yeah,
Really great movie. Lords of Dogtown.
never saw that.
Skateboard movie. It's good. It's like a good it's smaller scale, but it's interesting to watch like these skateboard guys doing their thing.
Okay.
It's a good movie. Heath Ledger, you're like, I know him as like, these like pretty boy roles. What the hell is he gonna do as the Joker? Like I'm thinking like
And then he
Jack
becomes
Nicholson. I'm thinking like,
and then he becomes
Mark
the
Hamill's
like
Joker. Yeah.
grimiest, most legitimately insane Joker we've seen, I think.
Yeah. So the whole thing that sadly happens is for the filming of the movie as the Joker, he uses a film technique called emotional recall.
Don't do it.
Do not, under any... Like, I can't say this enough. This was something I learned, funny enough, when I was in college and learning about acting. Don't use emotional recall because it will destroy you. You can use it maybe in brief little snips of scenes.
For an audition, or for, like, if you need to cry in one quick little scene, but not for a whole character.
Yeah, for a whole character to use emotional recall, you will destroy yourself. It was proved with... Stanislavski in Russia when he developed emotional recall for his actors. Literally, he told stories of like his actors drinking themselves to death, actors killing themselves, actors going into these like states of like fugue states.
Yeah,
like literally because of the trauma they're bringing back up. It's constantly ripping open a wound that may have even healed, but now they're reopening it.
Yeah.
So he uses that, and ultimately, sadly, I believe. He overdoses on sleeping pills.
Yes.
And I believe there was something else. I think alcohol as well.
And I think his family has his journal that he kept, when he was living by himself, getting into this Joker mindset. And I believe they said they're never going to release it. Is that right?
I think I've heard that, yes, and I would say good.
Yeah, please don't release that.
Yeah, I don't want to see what went through his mind, because... Part of the brilliance of his performance as the Joker is that it's so unorthodox.
Yeah.
It was not seen... I don't think there was any actor...
It was chaos, and that's the whole theme of the movie, is like order versus chaos, and he really was chaotic.
Yeah, and like his whole performance, it's like I don't remember ever seeing an actor go that far.
No.
And again, he went so far without looking corny and stupid.
Yeah.
Another, to go back to a movie that I will compare two actors to, Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, Batman Forever.
Stop! The Bat wants to play? Let's play!
Fortune smiles another day of wine and roses. In your case, beer and pizza. So
what?
That scene that's at the very beginning.
Hold on, you broke me.
Yeah, that scene that's at the very beginning of the movie. Yeah, I love that.
Anyway, hold on. I need to compose myself. So anyway, back to good acting.
Yeah. So the whole point I'm trying to make is that you look at like a very hammy performance of Insanity with Two-Face and Tommy Lee Jones, very good actor, but his hammy take versus Heath Ledger, very much orchestrated Insanity of he'll be quiet and sound manic and trying to control his manicness, but when he finally gains control, he becomes like loud and terrifying.
Yeah. And it's like
it's like it's like weird. He almost takes on the Batman voice, which is freaky.
Yeah, which I
freaky.
wonder if that was intentional, but let's press
It probably was. And then, thankfully
You're
recognized
just a freak like me.
Yeah.
Which that parallel between them, that was a great theme of The Dark Knight. Between the Joker and Batman, that dynamic.
Definitely, they're two sides of Harvey Dent's coin.
There
There you go.
I never thought of it like that.
But I digress. Wins best supporting actor, easily one of the best supporting roles of all time. Period.
Yes.
Period, or whatever people say on TikTok. So, wins best supporting actor. One of the best performances of the 2000s. Only issue is it proceeded to launch some of the dumbest impressions I've heard, and they're cringy because they don't get it. Like, it's frustrating. They're doing the voice, but they're not like doing it like how Heath Ledger did it, where he took a Midwest accent, added it to this character.
It's a Midwest accent.
Yep, because the whole time they're shooting in Chicago.
Oh,
Like that's where they shot The Dark Knight.
Yeah,
but the Midwest accent is like kind of that like how crazy I can be. Like it's very like it's supposed to sound like it's like, hey Bob, I'm gonna go get myself.
Yeah, like howdy ho neighbor.
Yeah, howdy ho neighbor. So that launches 1,000 kids destroying their reputations in high school
and their vocal cords.
Yeah, everyone's like wearing like shirts with like Heath Ledger's like smile, like why so serious, and you get this whole meme where it's like to Liam, crazy straws are just normal straws and shit like that.
Excuse me.
So yeah, like that. I don't know. That might be the only downside of the movie. Everything else is incredible.
Yes.
Easily one of the best movies of the 2000s. That goes out saying. And Chris Nolan just helming the shit out of it. The directing in that movie, the editing,
absolutely,
the intensity of the cuts between, the building of tension with
God.
Hans Zimmer. So it's weird. It's this weird, brilliant synergy of the editing. I could go on all day about Christopher Nolan in the editing room. Absolutely in sync with the editor, but how in sync he was with Hans Zimmer in this movie with the building tension of, you have the scenes where like
the Joker's theme, which Hans Zimmer even said, the Joker has no sense of finality. He's just always going to be crazy. So he wanted the music to reflect that by having this tension that never quite resolves. So you have this like violin that goes and it just kind of fades out.
Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah.
It's like, it literally had me like, again, I can remember being 16 years old watching the movie and just like literally just like
being unnerved,
unable to look away from the screen, but the entire cinematic gravity was so intense that I don't know how many other movies I've seen that really recaptured that.
Yeah. And I don't know why, I was thinking recently, I haven't seen The Dark Knight in a while, but for some reason I was thinking recently about this great line from Rachel in her letter to Bruce Wayne / Batman, and she says something to the effect of, there will come a time when the city won't need Batman anymore, but I don't know if there will ever be a time when you don't need Batman. And I think that's a great line.
It's good writing.
Yeah.
Really is. It's like, again, there's so many parts. It's a movie where it just synergizes so goddamn well. And the fact it didn't win Best Picture and it wasn't even nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah.
How? I don't
Wild.
know. But yeah. So after The Dark Knight, again, Christopher Nolan's just batting a fucking 1,000 at this point.
Yeah.
You may have had like...
He accepts the award on behalf of Heath Ledger.
At the Oscars.
Posthumously, yes.
And now he's on to make the next Batman movie, but because he's been so good at doing what he's been doing, he finally has, like, I would say his original idea that, like, I feel like...
I like his sort of back and forth structure in his Batman era, because like it keeps him fresh for the next Batman movie, but also it gives people a little a little taste of Chris Nolan outside of Batman. So he did Batman Begins, then The Prestige, then The Dark Knight, and then Inception, baby.
Which Inception is the project that I would say feels like the one he was sitting on, and he talks about it too, how he used to have like this vision of doing a movie of basically dream thieves, I believe, or like or thought thieves.
Yeah.
So in Inception, you have the character Cobb, which, as we talked about in following, the thief in that movie is named Cobb.
Yes.
Which turns out to be all in the mind or thoughts of the young man character that you follow in it.
It's very different types of thieves.
So in Inception, you have these group of guys who, on behalf of other companies, will send them into the dreams of these like CEOs and other power heads of rival companies to steal ideas from them.
Yeah.
Thoughts, ideas, maybe it's like codes, whatever is necessary for them to get the edge on the competition.
And that is called extraction, when they take thoughts from other people's minds, but they're trying this new thing that is very difficult called inception, which is planting a thought in someone's mind.
So in this case here, again, we come back to another reused character. Cillian Murphy comes back, and this time plays the son of this rich CEO who sadly just passed away, I believe, of cancer.
Yeah.
You have Leonardo DiCaprio as Cobb, who, damn, is he good in it. He's like, again, his acting in it is so goddamn good, but I would say the person in the movie who stands out the most to me, and again, going back to reusing actors, this movie made a star of Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Tom Hardy already had...
Don't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
So good. Yeah, like, you had him, like, do bigger movies before. Like, he was in the one Star Trek movie. He played young Picard.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like...
Actually, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, he plays... I forget which Star Trek it was. It may have been Nemesis. But he plays, like, this, like, I think it's like a branching timeline or something where he plays the younger version of an alternative Picard.
Okay.
And they're at it, and they're, like, they go head-to-head with each other. He was in that. He was in a movie called Bronson, which I've seen clips of. I don't know if I ever want to actually watch the movie. He plays this crazy-ass criminal who is actually a real person.
Yeah.
He's like, shut the fuck up, you cunt. Like, shit like
Oh,
that.
my God!
Yeah, shit where he loses his mind.
Okay, John Lithgow, shut up, cunt.
Oh, yeah. That's a little Dexter reference. So you have Tom Hardy, who I think is the one who like really benefits from this movie because he is fucking great. You get Joseph Gordon-Levitt as his assistant to Cobb, who's like he's kind of the muscle, I would say. Like if there's some dirty work that needs to be done, he'll do it.
Yeah.
You have Elliot Page at the time, Ellen Page.
Yeah.
Her character in it is
Isn't she the one who like makes the maps for the dreams?
So she's the one who lays out the entire, like, the rooms, everything that the subject is going to be walking through. They have her design it, and the design is supposed to be a maze that everyone else knows, but the
dreamer does not know.
The dreamer doesn't know, and also the dreamer who like fills the space with these like
subconscious defense mechanisms.
Yeah, they're people, but they're actually like almost like white blood cells that are meant to get out the foreign like the virus, basically. And if you want to view Cobb and his team as the virus.
Speaking of great writing from Nolan, always with the great writing, Leonardo DiCaprio gives this great little monologue about like, ideas are like a virus. They take hold and they affect everything they touch or something like that.
And I would also say too, Marion Cotillard.
Yep.
She is awesome. She plays this like, it's weird. She plays like a femme fatale in it, I would say. She's like this foil where she is Cobb's ex-wife.
And she's locked in his subconscious where they are like still married. But in reality, she, spoiler alert, if you have not seen Inception, they used to share dreams together. Like they would hook themselves up to this device that's used throughout the movie where people go inside each other's dreams. And they had this entire paradise built for themselves in the world of their minds. And she ended up, in reality, not knowing what's for real and what's dreams. So she killed herself trying to go to that paradise.
Yes. And
very dark movie in that aspect.
dark, but I would also say too, like, you know, they have like the thing that helps them, which is their totems. Everyone has a different totem. Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, he has like a die that will always roll to 6.
Yeah. A totem is a device you bring with you into the dream world that lets you know that it's a dream, and you're not supposed to tell anybody what your totem is.
Yeah, so in the Cobb's case, there's a theory that for him it's the top, but they also say that his other totem may be his wedding ring as well.
Yes.
Like, apparently that was his wife's totem, so he took that.
So what's your thoughts on the end of the movie with the spinning top? This has been debated for what feels like decades.
So I agree with Christopher Nolan's take, is the point of it is not the actual ending. Now, do I think the ending, he's actually in reality? Yes, I do think he actually gets out of the dream.
I like to think he's in reality.
Yeah. Because, again, the whole thing that they go into in the movie is the fact that, like, he constantly has this reoccurring image of him
seeing his kids. Yeah.
Him coming home, seeing his kids, but anytime you look at the kids, they're always facing forward, digging for a worm. I think he says something like that.
Yeah,
but you only see the back of their heads.
And they, like, hear a voice and they run away.
Yeah. But in this time, when he comes in, though, the kids turn around and they actually face him to run to him.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. And then also, too, like, you see the top start to shake, which to me, the minute you see it shake, you know, okay, so clearly now he's not.
Because the top's about to fall. It only keeps spinning in a dream, but in reality it falls.
Yeah, but Chris Nolan's take to me is, like, the best one, which is, like, it really doesn't matter whether or not, you know, he's in the dream, out of the dream.
What matters is that he's happy.
He's happy, he's with his kids, he's, like, he's come full circle. So for him, that's almost the bigger picture than whether or not he is dreaming, is he not dreaming.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he could be dreaming still, but at least now it's like a positive, happy, I'm with my kids again dream.
Yeah.
Over, oh shit, I'm trapped in the third layer of this dream, trying to bring out Ken Watanabe, another reused actor, trying to bring him out of this, like, you know, this deep state of like three or four levels down.
Yeah.
Movie went on to do very well.
Yeah.
It won Best Cinematography for Wally Pfister, thank you God, because he once again lit the shit out of the movie. At the same time, having to deal with these incredible sets that they built specifically for the movie, where they were rotating sets so that in order to, like, portray that they're in a dream state.
That they're floating through a hallway, for example.
Yeah, so you have it where you have this really incredible fight scene with Joseph Gordon-Levitt getting into it with these like security protective measures from the mind.
Yeah.
They come in to try to isolate him and he's just fucking them up. That scene is incredible, and like rotating hallway. I would also say too the concept.
Oh, and the scene with the train coming down the road, like crashing into cars and shit. That was a practical effect. That was a bus with, like, a facade of a train on the front of it.
Yes, big thing with Christopher Nolan is regardless if he has a massive budget, small budget, he is practical, effects heavy, and very few directors, I think, take that level of effort.
Which eventually we'll get to some cool stuff with Interstellar with that, but not right now.
Yes.
So from Inception, we come to The Dark Knight Rises, baby.
You get Tom Hardy as Bane, you know, really made himself a household name with Inception, with his really awesome, slick performance as this, like, shifty-ass, card-wielding / dream bigger darling firing a
You're making him sound like Gambit.
He's kind of... he might actually be sick as Gambit. But anyway, so you have him make himself a household name, so now Christopher Nolan goes, okay, I want to use you now as the next villain. Now, there was a rumor I can remember prior to The Dark Knight Rises that he was going to have Leonardo DiCaprio play the Riddler.
I don't know how that would have panned out.
Stupidly. So I'm glad he didn't do that. Because, and also, too, the themes of all the movies are the different kinds of terrorism, I would say. You know, you have domestic terrorism with the Joker, and now you have international terrorism with Bane. Comes in as this outcast of the League of Shadows, assembles his own crew, makes his way into Gotham.
But I do want to say this about Bane. Christopher Nolan specifically wanted Bane to be the villain because, and maybe this is why he changed his mind from the Riddler to Bane. In the first two Batmans, Batman Begins and Dark Knight, Batman was going up against someone who was intellectually a challenge for him. So you had Crane with his power of fear, and Ra's al Ghul, who was also kind of preying upon fear and all the psychological tricks of ninjas. And then you have the Joker with his
Insanity.
Literal insanity.
Insanity, and then the warping of purity is the other thing I would say from the Dark Knight, of taking the ace in the hole, which is Harvey Dent, for both Batman and Joker, but Joker ultimately winning out and manipulating that to become like this great, white knight of Gotham, into like this mutilated
agent of chaos
who's like literally broken, and you fully understand why he's broken, but at the same time Joker was able to break him over Batman being able to save him.
Yeah.
So now we come to Bane, who
is more of a physical threat to Batman.
I would say also intellectually a threat as well.
Okay, how so?
He figures out Bruce Wayne's Batman.
Oh yeah.
Like he figures it, and
I haven't seen Dark Knight Rises in so long, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and not only does he figure out who Batman is, he's able to actually set himself up underneath his Batcave, or underneath the Gotham Tower.
Yeah.
So he's able to like take all of it. So he takes his whole armory, which your armory, greatly accepted.
See,
just,
that's the type
the
of
voices.
shit. That's the
so
type
good.
of shit that I thought was a little over the top about Dark Knight Rises, like the whole like villains taking over Gotham thing.
Oh, that is so. Again, talking about Tom Hardy, just fucking killing it. It's funny how the Joker voice became this the more iconic. But Bane's voice, initially when people first heard it, they were like, "What the fuck is he saying?"
Yeah.
And once though you watch the movie and it was mixed a little bit better, so you could actually hear what he was saying.
Yeah.
He was amazing. His voice was now granted South Park tried to do something with his voice, where he had everybody in the town wearing Bane masks.
Yeah.
And they think the UPS driver's fucking one of their wives, and you have I think Randy walk into the truck. He's like, "A wife is his life, Mr. UPS man." And so you have people who try to parody Bane's voice, and
it's just not as parodyable as Joker and Batman.
Why so serious? Shut the fuck up.
Anyway,
so
I almost forget sometimes we have Anne Hathaway as Catwoman, which
I thought she did a great job.
She was okay. Well, she definitely fit into the Nolan universe of more grounded and subtle.
Yeah, she had moments where she would do a little bit of a cat kind of movement, or some cat, some cat. It's hard to describe, but I would say, I guess, the whole thing with Catwoman is she very much embodies a cat. I'll actually give credit to Batman Returns in saying that I think Michelle Pfeiffer was a better Catwoman than
Anne Hathaway.
But granted,
that type of universe that Tim Burton was doing, that very stylized Art Deco, but also kind of getting into some weird BDSM stuff, she works for that universe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, doesn't she lick Batman's ear tip or some shit like that on his bat suit?
She licks a lot of stuff in that movie.
Yeah, she licks Danny DeVito's bald head.
Yep.
Anyway, so with the movie, you get
closure for Batman. I love the ending.
Yeah.
Where Batman sacrifices himself so that spoiler for this whole ending. Batman sacrifices himself so that Bruce Wayne can live and thrive and leave Batman behind him, as Rachel feared he never would, but he moved on from all this mess.
Yeah, you have that. You have, with the closure too, you get this really incredible fight scene at the very end when it's the cops who are able to escape. You have Batman, shoots his has this fire symbol of the bat signal in the bridge, and you have Bane looking up terrified I broke you, because it's very much also to the Nightfall comic book, which I could go on about, but I'll just keep it simple. To read Nightfall, it's really good. It's one of the most famous scenes is Bane taking Batman, breaking him over his fucking knee.
Oh, so that's where that happens. Okay.
Yep. So but it's a lot lamer version in The Dark Knight Rises, which is more realistic, where he just drops him on his knee and just fucks his back up. Where in the comic book, he literally is holding him over his knee, bending him until his back snaps in two. Much more brutal in the comic book than in the movie.
Yeah.
But the whole thing with Chris Nolan, he wants to keep it realistic. Fine. I would say my biggest complaint with The Dark Knight Rises is the tension that the Dark Knight had isn't really there as much as
it's less crime drama and more action epic.
And even too, the action, there's really not a ton of action in it.
Yeah, Batman be fighting with his elbows a lot.
Well, like, there's that. Like, you have, like, the one fight scene where it's Batman and Catwoman are, like, getting into it with Bane's men. You have the really great fight scene.
Oh, God, I've seen, like, zoomed in. Let me just talk a little shit for a second.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, no, absolutely.
I've seen zoomed in, like, slowed down footage of that fight on the roof where, like, Batman and Catwoman are fighting the guys. And, like, you see guys that aren't even, like, making contact. They're just, like, throwing punches in the air. And I'm like, where's the choreography at?
Yeah, like, there's elements to it that, like, I just feel like what made The Dark Knight so good was, like, the chase scene. You know, one of the big midpoints of The Dark Knight is this incredible chase scene. You know, you get this truck and Joker's just running into cars and shit, and you got
the bat cycle.
You get the bat cycle after his like his car gets fucked up,
and his car's like goodbye.
But with The Dark Knight Rises, it's like you don't really get those chase scenes as much. You don't get the same level of tension building.
Yeah.
Like, you get, like, cool scenes, like the scene where you get Batman versus Bane the first time, and Batman's doing everything he can to hit him.
Yeah.
Now, the whole thing with Batman is at this point, he just got done with, like, a 7-year hiatus.
Yeah.
Like, he had taken a break for 7 years. Post Harvey Dent. Post,
like, running away, basically.
Yeah, he becomes, like, he decides to take on the monster role.
Yeah.
Instead of, they want to leave Harvey Dent as this pristine face of Gotham.
Yeah.
And uphold this lie.
Which that's a great theme of Chris Nolan's Batman trilogy too, which is Batman is very self-sacrificing.
Very self-sacrificing.
In every way, like reputation especially.
Self-sacrificing, but at the same time, it ultimately comes back to, like, bite everyone in the ass. Because you have this scene with Bane doing this incredible monologue in front of Gotham City Hall, and he's, like, reading this note that Commissioner Gordon wrote out, where he's like, I lied. Batman saved my son. Harvey Dent went crazy. He murdered 2 of my officers. And I covered up for it. And I'm going to be hereby resigning. To which you have this great line where Bane's like, do you accept this man's resignation? And everyone goes, yeah. And and then, like, he's reading, like, and then, like, they do this whole cut. Like, any other director does that, I think it would be stupid. But this whole cutting in between, like, Bane saying, like, the rich will be beaten, and you just see, like, this random guy in, like, a Monopoly Man outfit getting beaten with sticks, and he's like, they will be tried, there will be blood spilled, and, like, he's doing, it's so good with Bane doing it, and just, like, the cross-cutting of the shit actually happening, like, I feel like, because it's the whole show don't tell in film, like, you show it, you don't tell it, but with Bane narrating this, and, like, cutting in between, it, like, really is, like, a great, like, okay, Christopher Nolan.
It's like show and tell.
Yeah, show and tell, and it's just fucking awesome. You have the great scene where the other great scene that just jumped to me was, like, Bane walking up to my guy, Ben Mendelsohn. So you have Ben Mendelsohn's character is trying to bring down Bruce Wayne and the Wayne Empire.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Bane, who has now figured out that, Bruce Wayne is Batman, uses Ben Mendelsohn's character in order to try to get a foothold in Gotham. Whole great scene where they raid the Gotham Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
Once again, another scene where, like, I like the audio mixing of it because, like, you have everything, like, go quiet and you can hear, like, papers getting dropped and you can see people, like, on the ground, like, ugh, after, like, Bane, like, gut punched the shit out of them.
Yeah.
So you have him and Bane at one point, and Ben Mendelsohn is trying to get big with Bane. He's trying to, like, get up in his face. He's like, you do what I say, blah, blah, blah. And then Bane, like, proceeds to put his hand on Ben Mendelsohn's shoulder. He's like, so you think you're in charge?
Yeah.
And it's like, at that point, you should know, oh, shit. And literally, like, grabs his face and just breaks his face. And,
oh, my God.
Yeah, like, that's awesome. And, yeah, just overall, like, it's one of those movies where, as much as I don't like it compared to the first 2 Batman movies, there's elements of it that are really good still.
Yeah.
Like, but the whole thing of him being dropped in a hole in Africa, I'm like, all right, that's kind of stupid. And
I thought it was really cool though, where, like, his back is broken, he's struck. Oh my God! And there's the one part where he makes this really visceral noise, That was I thought that was good acting from Christian Bale because it just sounds like he's out of breath and he's like struggling.
If you've ever had a back injury, and I've like had it where like I pulled my back, even pulling my back, god damn, that shit hurts. Like the back is he definitely sells a back injury. I'll say that. But still, dropping him in a hole in the middle of fucking...
But I thought it was really cool because the whole theme of this movie is rise. The Dark Knight rising like a phoenix from the ashes, all that shit.
Yeah. Well, you also...
with the chant, and then Christian Bale, Bruce Wayne is like, what does that mean? And this guy says, rise.
Well, I was going to say, it also has a pretty good twist, too, even though I think the twist was like... It would have been cooler if... I'm trying to think of how...
Wasn't, spoiler alert, Marion Cotillard's character, Talia al Ghul, wasn't she related to Bane?
So Marion Cotillard's character, again, actress being reused, she plays this, like, random-ass financier that turns out to be Talia al Ghul? Talia al Ghul,
yeah,
who's the daughter of Ra's al Ghul. She, I guess, with her mom, were shoved in the hole by Raj. I guess
shoved in the hole.
They were just like
by their own father.
They're like, get your ass down there.
And meanwhile, in Batman Begins, Ra's is like, I had a great love who was taken from me. Yeah, you shoved her down the fucking hole.
Yeah, you were like, you Spartan kicked the shit out of her down the hole.
Oh, good lord.
Yeah. So it turns out that Rash. Turns out he had a daughter. The daughter grows up in the bottom of this hole. She ends up finding a way to get out. And the way she gets out is she doesn't use a rope to get out. She just gets out like using her own body with the risk of her falling to death.
Like a gecko.
Yep. Did you say like a gecko?
Yeah.
So she's ultimately helped too at the time by this guy in the hole at the bottom of it who turns out to be Bane, Tom Hardy's character. She comes in, rescues Bane, gets him out of the hole. It's so fucking stupid. Anyway,
but we digress.
Yeah,
Imperfect movie, fun moments, but overall great closure at the very end with Bruce Wayne finding peace in his life.
Yeah, I'll never forget being in the movies, watching it, and that scene where he blows up with like he's taking the nuke out of the city, he's sacrificing himself. It's this really dramatic scene of him going out in the middle of the ocean, and you see you see Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, who, another plot twist, turns out to be Robin.
Yes.
Which I was like, I really wish Robin wouldn't have even. That's kind of stupid. He should have been just.
It was kind of a whatever last minute thing.
He should have been named Richard Grayson or Tim Drake, or like he should have had that name, and then people would have known. Okay, instead of this stupid twist of, oh, your name's Robin. It's like, all right, yeah. Anyone's curious to making a jerk off symbol right now, jerk off hand signal, But so you have it where Batman's, doing this heroic sacrifice. Everyone's watching him make this sacrifice, and the bomb goes off, and everything goes quiet. It's one of the first times in like the whole Batman series where there's actually like this elongated silence. The only other time being when he first falls down the hole and is rescued by his dad. There's like a kind of like this silent audio part.
Yeah. Which Dark Knight Rises brings everything full circle, because in the first one, his dad says, "Why do we fall, Bruce?" And I wish there was a flashback of that. Maybe it would have been a little heavy-handed, but in Dark Knight Rises, that would have been cool to have a flashback of like, "Why do we fall, Bruce?" So we can rise.
Oh, I thought it was to get back on your feet.
It's like so we can learn to pick ourselves up,
not to rise.
But like it's kind of the same thing.
All right, whatever. All right. So anyway, so the bomb blows up. You just see this like. Everyone's staring. You see like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, who turns out to be Robin. He has like tears in his eyes, and as I'm watching it, I'm like, God damn! Like it's hitting me. Like, oh shit!
They really killed Batman.
Yeah, and then these like this one guy in the front who was in front of me was like, "Ew, that would cause a tidal wave," and I'm like, shut the fuck up.
Never mind the death of Batman.
Off. Like I'm trying to watch. I'm trying. Again. Nothing pisses me off more is when I'm broken from cinematic gravity. This movie didn't have as much of it as The Dark Knight did, I feel like. But still, to have
it's
this
Nolan
guy like,
doing what he does.
Tidal wave. It's like, shut the fuck up. I will spin kick the shit out of you. Anyway, so end of the movie is funny enough, the end of the movie, it's positive, but there's also a theory that it's in the head of
It's always in
Alfred.
someone's head.
Well, the whole idea is that is what Alfred wants to, from you see this cut at the beginning
okay.
of, Alfred imagining, Bruce
Yeah,
Wayne
he has
happy
this conversation with Bruce
yeah.
Wayne, like basically asking him to please leave Batman behind as a thing altogether. And he's like, I have this dream that someday I'll see you in a restaurant. I won't say anything to you. You won't say anything to me. But we'll both know that you're happy.
And so the end of The Dark Knight Rises with Alfred seeing Bruce Wayne and also Selena Kyle, Catwoman.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't even know if he would stick with her, but I guess. Sure.
I don't know.
But so they're together, happy on this this island. It looked like almost like a Greek island, like I don't know, one of the Mediterranean island, I guess. And him seeing him, and it's at least a hopeful ending. Yeah. Going back to the theme of Chris Nolan movies, for as much as people want to shit on them, saying they're very stylized, they're stylized but don't have spirit.
I think Chris Nolan's movies overall are about light buried deep, deep, deep under a lot of darkness.
In a bat cave. being being surrounded by bats and being shit on by bats with guano. Yep. So going forward now, the next series of movies we're going to be discussing in part 3 are post Batman. There was kind of, and especially too after I think Dark Knight Rises, people I don't think felt as strongly about it as The Dark Knight. So I think a lot of people may have felt like,
yeah, after Dark Knight Rises, I was kind of a little whatever about Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, because at that point then it became very he almost became predictable.
Yeah.
I hate to say it that way because again, it's shit now, looking at what at the film work even after that, which is incredible.
Yeah.
He almost became predictable of, okay, let me guess, Hans Zimmer, dark blue tones, exposition dialogue that's just dumped.
A big trippy twist.
Yeah, a twist, stylized dialogue.
It was all in his
unorthodox means to get to the ends.
Yeah.
He became kind of predictable, but then you get the follow-up movie that we'll be discussing next time, which is
Interstellar.
Jesus Christ. You get a movie
amazing movie.
Yeah, which I'm looking forward to discussing after watching.
Yes.
To my shame, I've not.
Rich Githens here, folks, has not seen Interstellar. It is an amazing film. Rich, you're going to love it. So anyway, stay tuned, folks. Next week, we are diving into Interstellar and beyond. Let's go, baby.
Part 3 of the Nolan series.
Technically, well, part 4, because Insomnia was part 2. Its own thing.
Insomnia was its own, not even a Nolan thing. That was more just me going off on my...
You basically snorted a line of coke and told us a bedtime story.
You like gum? I put my gum in the trash.
Anyway, thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining us, and see you next time. Bye-bye.